Good afternoon, everybody. It's Wednesday. It's the 28th of July. You're here at Lunch and Learn. We're keeping everybody muted for now. Today, we're going to be having Jordan, one of the IT folks with NewMind. She's going to go over some of the new screens that you'll be seeing with the training software. The goal right now, as I understand it, is to try to release this software the first week of August, right around August 3rd or so. There's still a few things that we're trying to get fixed and changed or updated. So that could change, but we'll keep you posted on the listserv. But for now, Jordan, it's all yours, and she's going to take over showing you all the updates in the software. And if we have time towards the end, we can take a few Q&As. But otherwise, we're going to ask people, if you want to know more information, please email me your questions, and then we will go over those questions probably next week about software updates. Jordan, it's all yours. Thanks.
Thank you, thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. My name is Jordan. I do lots of different things around here at NewMind. And like Rob said, today I'm going to go over these release notes. This is basically just introducing these new features to you. This isn't a comprehensive review or anything like that. I just want to introduce these new features and improvements that we've made within the software. And so let's get started. So one of the biggest changes to the software is going to be your centralized monitoring and control. So this is going to be your training plan dashboard, and this will sort of be your home screen after you log in. All of your training plans are going to show up as these little cards here that we see, these little boxes. Those are going to be what your training plans are. Previously, these were in a list on the left-hand side, and so now we can see a little bit more about each training plan at a glance. And so another one of these improvements here is going to be the search function. You have a few more items to search by depending on if they're a home training client versus an in-clinic client. You can change the time frame of all the training plans that you would like to pull up. This is especially helpful if you are a large office. That way you don't have to pull all of your data every time you log in to help save syncing time. So you can even search by how many home training credits they have left or how long of a home training subscription they have left. There's all kinds of things that you can search by, in addition to kind of typing in the box up there. We've simplified home training administration overall. You can identify clients out of compliance or those who need credits just by looking at this screen here. You can also purchase training credits from multiple clients in a single transaction rather than all of them being separate. I'm sure there are people cheering from home about that. So an awesome new feature is going to be that you can monitor your client training sessions in real time. So as you can see in the screenshot on the top, there is a little flag that says training now, and that will let you know who's training right at this moment. It will tell you both your clinical and home training clients who's training right now. That way, if you have someone who might struggle with their signal or struggle with their sessions in general, and you notice that they're training, you can kind of keep an eye on them. Further, you can even send them a message. So you can send live messages to your clients during or in between your training sessions. So if you do it in between, when they log in, they'll see that message there. If you send them during a training session, you'll have the option to even pause the current training session. So if you notice any sort of problem, if you notice in the top picture, there's a preview of the trend screen. So if you see that the beta and high beta are starting to look like an escalator, you can send them a message, pause their session, and ask them to check their signal. Training plans will also default their sorting by most recently updated. So this means any change to a training plan, whether it is altering the name, running a session, or just creating a complete new training plan, those particular plans will be at the top when you search by most recently updated. Kind of keeps your list of people that you're working with most recently at the top. There's a few different things that you can sort by besides this, and so it makes finding the right client that you're looking for a lot easier. Next big change here, kind of overall, is we've got a pretty new look and enhanced usability. And so we've improved the user interface and entire experience really based on user feedback. We did several user interviews where we watched clinicians use our software, gave them kind of little quests to do, and we learned a lot about how clinicians use our software daily and differently. And so based off of that feedback, we've made some different changes. And one of the biggest changes is the color. The background is a lot darker, makes it a lot easier on the eyes since you are staring at a screen probably the majority of your day. And so we've made some of those colors pop out a little bit more and made some of the screens a bit bigger so that they're easier to see. In the top left corner, we've got our review screen. We're looking at the trend screen here, and then we've got all of our metrics at the bottom. One thing that we wanted to do was always keep all of the attention, all of the focus on the trend screen, since it is the most important. So all of these metrics here at the bottom, if they're normal, they're going to be gray. If they're out of norm, like this one here is with asymmetry, they're going to turn red to bring your attention to them. Otherwise, we want all of your attention on the trend screen. Right underneath that, we've got a calendar view of a client's session history. This gives a visual view of how often someone is training. It will show both in-clinic sessions and at-home sessions. And so for visual people like me, this is really helpful to determine patterns in training, again, seeing if compliance is any sort of issue, if someone's training not enough or too much. You can really view that here. So we also see their home training subscription using that green line there at the top. So for this particular client that we're looking at, they've got a home training subscription for the entire month. The top right screenshot is going to show the protocol screen. Not a lot has changed here in terms of function. Really the look has changed. So it's still showing you the location that you're training at, all the protocol info. If you want to change the target rate, you can do that there. And then right underneath that is going to be the brain mapping screen. That's another screen that not a whole lot has changed in terms of function. We've just updated some of the colors there to be a little bit more readable. One question that we get a lot is, how the heck do I read a trend screen? We know that the trend screen is the most important, but reading the trend screen is a really tricky business, especially for new users. And so in general here, we've made the trend screen have a little bit better contrast. You can make a few different changes on this screen to help with the readability. But most importantly here, a new chart has been added. And so this is going to be the trend performance screen. So in a 2-channel protocol, there's 3 elements that we use to really determine how a session is going. And those are layering, compression, and convergence. So we're giving you those 3 things there in the form of a graph. And so single channel protocols are also going to have this graph, just without the convergence. The blue line at the top there with the stars is going to show kind of the overall trend performance. It is a conglomeration of those 3 lines below. It won't give you as much detail as the actual trend screen, but it does give you kind of an all-encompassing line to see how your client compared to their previous training sessions. So clients will get points for their sessions, and the stars will signify moments when all 3 of those metrics are doing really well. One important thing that I do want to note here, however, is that training is not always linear. So it's very important to always base your training off of the original trend screen and not expect a linear progression. The last 2 graphs here, these were available before, but we noticed that a lot of people didn't know that they were there. And so we made them a little bit more accessible. We made them full screen, more readable. So both the asymmetry and activation charts here are showing both of those metrics throughout the entire session. Home training has really been the heart of a lot of the improvements here in the software, especially after the last 1.5 years. Home training is most likely here to stay, and it's probably going to get a lot bigger for a lot of offices, as we've noticed so far. So we've made a lot of improvements with that in mind. You have the ability to hide session results. Those are the charts that we were just looking at above. You can hide those at the end of the home training session. Depending on your client, some clients really want to see these kinds of things. They find them really helpful. Others, not so much. They can look at those charts and kind of get a little self-depreciating depending on if they are expecting a linear progression and it's not happening that way. So it's up to you as the clinician to gauge when these might be helpful to your client, because as we know, progress is almost never linear, and that is sometimes really upsetting. You can also set the progress tracking frequency. For example, if someone's training at home every single day, you don't necessarily need the progress tracker every day. So what you can do is set the frequency of the progress tracker to display every X number of sessions. You can decide however many sessions that is. We've also improved the in-simulation warning for home trainers. That way, if their amplifier is not hooked up correctly or is not being read by the computer for some reason, they'll get a message that they're in simulation mode and that those signals are for demo purposes only. They are not their signal. We also changed the default feedback option. Instead of screen and audio fading being the default, we changed this to screen fading only, since it's something that people use more often. That way, if you happen to forget to change the feedback, it will still likely be defaulted to something that you would use anyways. We've also added a 50% auto artifact level selection to your settings here, similar to in your clinical training where you can select those auto artifact levels. We've got 75%, 25% on or off, and so we've added a 50% auto artifact level to have a happy medium there. Depending on how much artifact your client is producing, you can choose the level of auto artifacting that's going to work best for you. We've added a few different types of training. One of these, we worked really hard with Jeff Tarrant to add neuromeditation protocols. The training screens have been reconfigured a little bit, and so just to give a little bit of insight on this, new metrics have been added specifically for neuromeditation, things like stability and time, so how often they're getting into a meditative state and the percentage of time that they were able to hold that meditative state. Training filters are also default instead of the standard filters. And neuromeditation is going to be available for home training. And so that makes it really easy to set up for your home trainers, and you can use that in that sort of setting. There's also an indicator saying that training has started. These are eyes closed protocols, most of them. And so a tone is played to inform the user that the training has begun. So that way they don't have to peek open their eyes, because obviously if you're trying to meditate, opening your eyes can be a bit disruptive. So a tone is played letting you know after the 3-minute baseline has gone through that the training has actually begun. To unlock neuromeditation, you do need to take a workshop with Jeff Tarrant, and so I will link that both on the listserv, and then also when I post this up to YouTube, I will link it there. Proportional tone training. This is another type of training that is going to be added, or that is added. The setup and training screen have both been redesigned, and so there's a quicker setup. And the proportional tone alpha down training is now a preset protocol in your single channel protocol. So that's going to be next to your SMR and your alpha theta. For the proportional tones, you're listening to a musical scale. And so you have a couple different options for the scale type, whether it's major or pentatonic. They're a little bit different. You've also got tone selections. I believe the default is going to be grand piano, although personally, I like the marimba. And all of this will also be available for home training. Super easy to set up. You just turn it on, choose the scale, choose the tone, and you're ready to rock and roll. A peak alpha protocol has also been added to your single channel protocol options. So again, for quicker training plan setup, it's there in your single channel drop-down list, right next to your SMR, now proportional and alpha theta protocols. Another type of training that has been added is going to be our 4-channel multivariant coherence training. A performance chart has also been added here. That way you have a coherence trend line in addition to your normal trend screen. Coherence training sessions with single amplitude frequency has also been added. If you have any questions about these training types, or really any questions at all, feel free to contact me. If it's something more clinical, I will likely refer you to Dr. Suter. We've done some presentations on a couple of these, and so I will link those videos also after this. In brain mapping, we have added a customized brain map recording length. So it's now possible to record a custom length brain map anywhere from 1 to 20 minutes. Some people are doing research, some people are doing lots of different things with their brain maps. And so we needed a little bit of flexibility here. The amount of time that you need in order to produce a brain map report will not change. That will still be a 30-second minimum. And so you don't have to increase the time of your maps. It's just that we have added the ability for you to record a longer one. Within the general training experience, several tones have been added, updated, or removed for a more enjoyable and soothing training experience for your clients. One of those being the low flute, which has been updated to make it a little bit more soothing. We've also added new alpha theta tones. We've got a high alpha tone and a low theta tone. Ooh, too far. There we go. We've also added FPZ as a location for your single channel locations. So that's another location you can train at now. Similar to the home training protocols we talked about earlier, you've got the 50% auto artifacting level for your clinical training plans, again, depending on how much artifact your client is creating during the training session. Sometimes you need to turn this up, sometimes you need to turn it off. It just depends on how much artifact is being produced. Within the training plans, the actual names of them will be changed a little bit. We're going to add EO or EC, kind of like your brain maps, to the training plan name based on if the actual training plan is eyes open or eyes closed. This way, if you are in a really big office, you have a lot of different techs working, or like me, you just plain forget, you can easily see if you are training eyes open or eyes closed at a glance. Some other general improvements that we've made are a warning when your subscription or your credit card is expiring. This is going to help reduce downtime for you guys. And our very last improvement here, it's a bit understated. This took a lot of work under the hood to improve the sync time for the software. And so that's time in between screens or when you first log into your software, trying to get that to load a little bit faster and improve any new computers that are added to your clinic. And so again, this is a brief run through of kind of most of the features just to introduce them before we update next week. We're going to be doing more in-depth lunch and learns where we dig into the software and go through it. There will be an option to use the software in classic mode. It's pretty close to what it is now, but we've kind of left that in there to kind of ease the transition into this new experience. We are super excited to introduce all of these new features and workflows. Our support team will be standing by for any questions that you might have. And again, I'm going to link some of these items that I mentioned earlier in a post on the listserv, and I will also link them on the YouTube channel. And so lastly, I just want to thank all of our beta testers for their invaluable time and feedback, our development team for countless hours of super hard work, and our support team I want to thank in advance because I know we're going to be fielding a lot of questions over the next couple weeks. And we're just really looking forward to sharing this update with you all. So thank you for listening.
All right,
All
Jordan,
right.
that was fantastic. I'm glad you mentioned the classic mode because I know for me, seeing all that stuff up front starts my heart rate accelerating when I'm like, uh-oh, I have to learn all this how fast and how soon, and
Definitely.
where's the workshop? And so everyone, again, I want to reiterate, you when you log on, you have the choice of using the classic, continuing to use the classic experience for quite a while in the future, as you slowly start to explore this other newer version and find all the wonderful advantages that it can offer you in so many ways. Rob,
Yeah,
do you have?
one thing I also
Yeah.
didn't mention, real quick, Rob, sorry, is that there will actually be kind of like a little tutorial when you first log in, and you can make this so that it kind of gives you this tutorial each time you log in. It's kind of like little text bubbles that will appear across the screen, kind of leading you on a little tour of kind of the top options that you really need to get to, get going on a training plan or a session or anything like that. But yes, of course, I know that this transition is, change is always a little bit scary and kind of hard. And so give yourself some time and some grace to learn some of this new software. But even then, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call.
The other thing folks can do is you're working with the new software and you just feel like you're kind of getting lost in it, you can, as Richard said, go back to the classic. You can go back and forth anytime you want to. So if you want to go, say, set up a training, oh, I forgot how to do that, just go back to classic. But the software, if you take your time, it just play with it. I always encourage people, especially when I mentor people, with the NewMind software, sit down, set aside a time, sit down for an hour, set up a protocol for yourself. Just take the time to go play with it, listen to the different tones, listen to the different, look at the different screens that Jordan reviewed with us, and we'll go into more detail with all of this. But if you take the time, you'll learn it. It all makes sense. It's more so different screens with some additions versus this whole thing got changed around. So it seems a bit daunting in the beginning, but you'll do fine with it. Also, since we finished up pretty early, Richard, do you want to unmute people and see if people have any basic questions now, since we have time?
I was hoping you'd ask me about that, Rob. Yeah, let
Yeah.
me.
So while Richard's unmuting folks, so I can pull up my software if people have a specific question, or if we keep the Jordan, do you have software in front of you, the actual software?
I do.
Okay, so we can keep Jordan to have the screen. We can demonstrate and show a few things. And then if folks have questions about this, please submit them to me in writing. Now, this Friday, I will not be here. I have to run another webinar, but next Wednesday, which is the day when we tend to have a pretty good attendance, if we have questions, we will set that time up to review the software and take people specific questions as to, well, how do you do this, or what's new about that, or so forth. Because some of the review screens are, when you're looking at a session, are really very beneficial. As Jordan again described briefly, there's some updates on that, but it's a whole new way of looking at your trend screens and how people are progressing and similarities and all that. And they offer you a lot more information than the current classic view does.
So by next Wednesday, everything will be downloaded and people will have had an opportunity to play around a little bit. Is that what you're saying? Because otherwise the questions will be not accurate really for.
If the download occurs on Tuesday, as scheduled, the 3rd, then Wednesday, people will be able to, pull up their own software, and we can of course demonstrate things, online in the same fashion or screen they're looking at. So yeah, Judy, that would be fine.
Good.
So keep in mind that the 3rd is still, it's targeted, it's tentative. Richard and I have wanted to maintain certain aspects of the classic training, and the developers kind of went above and beyond, and we're asking them to go back and change it back to the way it was. So we're hoping that'll all get done, but it'll be coming out soon. Any questions people have or comments?
But
I have a
everybody,
question.
yeah.
Yeah.
Carl here.
Hey, Carl.
So my question would be, relative to the home training units that are out there in the field, will there have to be an update to those, or is that just something that's going to be on the back end side that we'll be using?
Great question. So there will eventually be an update to the home training software. The units themselves are totally fine. They don't need to be updated. But there will be an update to the home training software similar to the clinical software here. They'll get prompted when they first log in to update their software, but they do get a choice if they want to update then or not. But if they do not update, the software closes, and that's because we want all of the home users to be on the same version. It makes it a lot easier to manage on our end. And so, so they have the choice, sort of. If they don't want to update right then and there, the software will just close. Otherwise, they do have to update. But yes, that will be going out probably shortly after this clinical update. I don't have a firm date on that yet.
Okay.
But as far as anything changing within the home training software that you would need to let your clients know about, nothing yet. I did mention those messages that you can send them. Those will be available to them when they first log in, and so there's not really anywhere else they'll need to go. So there's not a whole lot of other kind of workflows that you'll need to teach them.
Okay, yeah, I missed that because I didn't get on right away. So
No
there's
worries.
a message
Carl,
that'll come up.
yeah, Carl, the thing I would encourage you to do when the new software comes out, if you have a spare home training unit in your office, what you can do is set up a home training session, for yourself. Or I always have what people have seen. I have a demo person in my maps. It's not a person. It's called demo for demonstration purposes. So you can set up a protocol, use your home trainer, log in onto your name or your demo name or whatever, and get sort of familiar with it, so that when things are updated, you can sit down with your clients or patients and say, here are some of the things that we'll do. I'm going to wait till this next update for the home training comes out. Then the home training manual I wrote is still pretty useful, and I'll try to put some updates into it. But the new software, as you know, I wrote a manual for the software when it first came out. It would take me weeks to update that manual I wrote, and it's too large to fit into an email. So you have to log in the Dropbox and all that. So I probably will not do a written version of the manual unless NewMind begs me to do it, in which case then I would. But for the home training, I will update that. So I always encourage people to, once an update happens, sit down, set yourself a protocol, test drive it, get a sense of it. Do the same thing with the home training. Set up a home training for yourself. Remember, if you run it for less than 3 minutes, you don't have to pay for it. So you can just test drive it and not worry about having to pay every time you want to test drive a new update.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
To kind of piggyback off of that, you don't even have to have a unit. You can just use both the clinical and the home training software, both in simulation mode, to kind of play around with them. If you're trying to run sessions, you don't have to have somebody hooked up or yourself hooked up. You can just run it in simulation. If you don't want to put goop in your hair. And another thing is that as we're making these changes to the home training software, if you give me a call, if you want to meet with me to go over this, if you want me to give you a few home training credits so that you can really test drive this out, I'm totally one of those people that really needs to go through the entire process probably a few times before I kind of present it to somebody else. And so if you give me a call and you just want, maybe it's a week of unlimited or something like that, I'm happy to provide that for you.
Well, there's an offer we
Thank
can't
you.
refuse. Perfect. Other questions? Jordan, either you scared them to death or they're just overwhelmed.
Well,
Maybe a bit of both.
Jordan, let's log in and show them where the button is for classic versus.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's a good idea.
So they know
So before I
know where to
even
look.
log in, you'll
Mhm.
notice that the login screen has changed. It looks a little bit different. And so if you want to go into the online mode, you just log straight in. Otherwise, you just click this work offline button. So I'm going to log in here.
And we can also take a look at the little bubbles that tell you what each area is for. They're very helpful.
I believe I actually turned them off because I've been testing this so much.
Oh,
I didn't want to go through them every single time.
yeah,
So I
they are.
don't remember if they are on or off. But
Okay.
when you first log in, here is your kind of sort of home screen before you get into brain training or brain mapping. And so you'll notice on the left, you've kind of got your admin sort of things, your account information, any like your registration key, things like that. And then this message here at the bottom is where you can return to the classic experience. So if I click that, it will bring me back to the classic view. This screen will look really familiar to a lot of you. And so you will, you'll be able to use the software in the classic mode. But a little caveat here, the classic mode does have a few changes in it. And so there were some things that we just couldn't run in parallel with this new experience and the classic. And so, so there are a few changes. Again, if you get stuck or anything like that, give us a call. We will definitely be more than happy to walk you through it.
Yeah, but most of those changes are more visual than actual process.
Yes, yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
We
they'll
tried to keep
figure
the
that out.
process.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
process
we
is the
tried to keep
same.
the
It's just
process.
some of the screens are slightly different
Yeah, they
looking.
look
Yes,
a little
it's
different.
mostly the colors that have
Mm.
been changed in the classic view.
Right.
A lot of the processes, obviously, being the classic view, we wanted to keep as close to the same as they are now. That way, if you're just super busy and you're like, I don't have time to learn this right now, you can absolutely use the classic version.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest changes is the metrics at the bottom of the trend screen are all kind of gray, and when something's out, it turns red, and that's a little different from what it used to be.
Yes, that is something that I believe is in both the classic and the new experience. Again, that's just to keep all the focus on the trend screen as much as possible. We noticed when we were doing user interviews that some people were confused by the colors. And so we made them all gray if they are all within norms. If they get out of norm, then you want your attention to be drawn to them. And so that's when they turn red.
Right, that's important. And then if you're an advanced user and you're doing proportional um, or the coherence training, those will be on the setup screen. You won't have, in the past, in the proportional, you had to go start the screen up for training and then go select proportional on the drop down. Now, before you ever get to the training screen, you can set up the proportional. So that's a little different, but easier in the classic.
Yeah, previously the proportional, we had it as a feedback type instead of its own actual protocol. And so it was kind of cumbersome to have to get in there and go all the way into a session and then change all of those settings. So we made it so that you can kind of set your settings before the training starts.
Let's open up the brain training and maybe we can show that.
Sure.
I mean, under the old one,
Oh,
under the
classic.
classic. Yeah, that's what I wanted to show them. Make sure they
Um,
understand how things are now in the classic. So if you click on the brain training, we can show them how you get to proportional in
sure.
the classic.
One last thing before I go there, this message at the bottom asking you, if you want to toggle between the new and the classic experience, it will stay up there until you tell it to go away. We wanted it to not be in the way, but we wanted it to be very easily visible. And so there is this little X there on the end. So if I click that, it will go away. But if I want to get back to it, I just go all the way back out to like this screen here,
Yep.
or alternatively the other brain mapping brain training screen, and that will come back. And so that was always there unless you click away from it.
Yeah, so in either mode, just click on home and it'll take you back to the home screen and that window will appear again.
Okay, so let's say we wanted to create a proportional training screen.
Alrighty, so I'm gonna create a whole new training plan here. Bear with me. Alrighty, so within the classic view, I'm going to go down to the proportional
Well,
tones,
that's where
alpha
we put it
down.
now. It's a
Yes,
different place than before. You had to start up the training screen, then go up into the right-hand side, and then under tone, select proportional. And that was a lot of clicks, and it was confusing. So now
yeah, it took a while to get there.
and it's kind of hidden. We kept it hidden originally because we didn't want everybody new to the software or new coming into neurofeedback to be running to do an advanced technique like proportional right away until they really understood, the basic training methodologies. But now I think everybody's kind of up to speed, and we've clarified all those issues. So now the proportional is in the initial drop down, and you just select it there.
Yes, yeah, like I was saying, it's no longer a feedback type. It is its own protocol. It has graduated. And so it's here in the single channel drop-down list right next to that peak alpha protocol also, which is new. And then all, your alpha, theta, and your SMRs are still there.
Right, so that is an improvement that should make it easier. So
I don't want to dig too far into the software because I know this has already been a lot to kind of introduce to people. And so unless we really want to, I can definitely dig down further. But if there's any sort of questions before we get there, I would be happy to hear those.
Why don't you load the full, like as if you were setting somebody on proportional, so I
Sure.
can really see the full difference.
Definitely. So
and
I'm
we
going
can
to
repeat this.
click proportional here. I would link to a client. I'm going to do my man Tony here. And I will set my session length like normal. I'll do 20 minutes. And then you can choose eyes open or eyes closed. I believe this is an eyes open protocol. Dr. S, can you do this one closed?
Yes, you can do it either way.
Gotcha, cool. And so the 50% target rate, that is something that you don't want to touch. It is 50% for a reason. And so everything here is already preset, and so you're really ready to go. So let me get rid of that message and we will jump in. And so the proportional tones are for your high alpha people. I am one of those, and so I've used this quite a lot. And I've really enjoyed this. It's kind of like, I sort of call it brain music as you're listening to it. You're listening to a musical scale as the session's going. And so it makes it really nice to listen to. And so again, in my session settings here, I can decide which type of scale that I want, whether it's the major scale or the pentatonic scale. If you're not a music person, you may just want to listen to both of these and then decide whichever one works best for you. I happen to like the pentatonic, and so I will go with that one. I also like the, where did it go here? I've got my pentatonic scale, and then I would also choose my, my sound, which might be over here. I'm using this in the classic version and it's slightly different. I haven't used the classic version in quite a bit, but my tone I will choose over here. I believe in the new version, both the tone and the scale type will be in the session settings.
Yeah.
So it's defaulted to grand piano. Like I said, I really like marimba, and so I use that one. And again, I've got no amplifier connected, so my signals are for demo purposes only. I do have to physically dismiss this message just because that has sort of caused issues in the past where sometimes people don't quite realize that they are in simulation mode. So you do physically have to dismiss this message in order for it to go away. If I start this, I may not be able to hear you guys anymore.
I wouldn't start it up. It'll audio will.
Yeah, my audio will go crazy. But that's how you get into those sort of settings. And this is where I'm talking about where the actual screen looks slightly different. The screen is a little bit darker. We've got some of these things up here. Now all of our graphs are up here instead of being in this bottom panel. So that way they're easier to see. They're a lot bigger, and it just gives you a nicer view.
Yeah, you can toggle in real time and it's all right there. It's kind of nice and handy.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest things. Maybe we could just show them a regular training screen too, with the numbers at the bottom.
Let me get out of here.
You know, it doesn't hurt to do this many times on several videos.
Yes. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to record myself going through the software, or probably going through a bunch of kind of different sequences. And then I'll post those up to the YouTube channel. So I'll go through how to create a training plan, how to set up different things, how to change your settings in places, home training things. I'll kind of sprinkle those videos up to the YouTube channel as I am able. And that way, hopefully, it can help with this sort of onboarding process.
Yeah, the reason we want to go through this now is several of you may just have a busy schedule and not time next week, and just want to use the classic for a while until you get some time on the weekend or an afternoon. And when it comes up, we want you to be familiar that these little changes have occurred in your software, even though you didn't update, and you're aware of them. They're minor, but they might throw you a little bit.
I'm going to go right into a session.
A small percentage of you are using proportional, so I wanted you to know where you could get it again. It was right up in that new spot. Didn't much get thrown off. And then when you're training on the trend screen, definitely want you to know that there's minor change here in the numbers at the bottom on the classic. You can see they're all gray down there.
Yes, so they are all gray. Some of the configuration of this screen looks a little bit different. Like the filters here, we wanted to make those a little bit easier. For some, they were a little bit hard to read, very small, and so we made this entire box here a little bit bigger. And so you've got your trend history. So while your session is going, you can look through your trend history. I don't know, oh, there is. Sometimes with these kind of demo protocols, I don't know if things have actually been run. So you can actually look through previous trend screens. You can go left and right, or even use this drop down to kind of toggle between.
Yeah, a lot of times when I'm training people, I go, well, wait a second, what did they do last session? And I can just click in real time now without going through all this different procedures or shutting things down.
Or even stopping the session completely. You still have access to all that data there. Although it is just for this particular protocol, it wouldn't be all of Tony's protocols here. It is just this particular one that I can look through the trend history for.
Yeah, that's great.
So we've got our asymmetry graphs. These are a lot bigger. Previously, they were down here with all these metrics. And so now they are a little bit bigger, a lot more breathing room. We even added some little hints there, you know, beta is for relaxation, alpha kind of correlates with your mood. So we put those in there just to help. You know, neurofeedback is a tricky thing to learn. And so we want to make it as easy as we possibly can.
So we can cycle through these in real time while we're training. It's really kind of nice.
Yeah, you can even, I won't do it because you guys won't be able to see it, but you can even, like if I click on asymmetry here, I click and drag, I can kind of pop it out as its own window. And so I can do that also. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it if I do it. Yeah, I don't think so. And I've probably made my software angry by trying. So, so you can drag on those on, you know, the trend or trend history, z-scores, asymmetry, activation, spectral. You can pop those out as their own little windows. That way, if you're wanting to kind of monitor those while also still looking at the trend screen, you can do that. If you're like me and have a plethora of screens around you.
Yeah, that's kind of nice.
Angry.
If I had an extra screen, I'd want to pop some out and keep them up. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I've become very spoiled at NewMind. They give us 2 additional screens in addition to our actual computer, and now I can't survive without them. So, so yeah, I would definitely be taking advantage of a feature like that. And so I actually just made my software crash. I'm still in the beta version, and so there's some little.
Oh, that's okay. I think we got a really good idea of those very minor changes in the classic version, so people won't get confused when it pops up if they download the new software.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for going through these. We'll go more in depth here soon. I will upload this up to the YouTube channel once it is done processing. And like I said, I'll link to all those different resources so you have them. And again, any questions, concerns, if you get lost, give us a call and we will be your neurofeedback spirit guide.
Perfect. Thank you, Jordan.
You are welcome.
Rob, you have anything to add? You probably used both kinds more than anybody at this point.
Nope, I think that's a good beginning, you know, for everyone to get started and to realize some of the subtle changes in the classic software. But we can spend more time. If people have questions you want us to go over in real time, we can plan on that for next Wednesday, just to put up the actual software and just run demo sessions and explain things in some more detail.
Okay, we're at the top of the hour.
Yep.
And, so we'll be posting this video so you can see it again. And that should help. And then next week when we have the new software, we'll be going over it in more detail again. And make sure that everybody has access to videos that they can watch and follow along with.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for these great changes. I'm sure that it's going to be so useful once I get past my concern about change.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really are.
Absolutely.
There
are some tremendous benefits. There are definite tremendous benefits, Judy. Once you get used to it, it's got some incredible benefits that I think everyone's going to wind up really enjoying and appreciating quite a bit.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to make the change. I mean, I'm not big on change either, believe it or not, and on my software, and I found it pretty easy to adapt to. It's pretty intuitive.
Yeah, it is.
Cool.
Okay.
So we'll see everybody then on Friday. And
there's nothing planned for Friday other than open discussion, but if people have maps or something, go ahead and submit them and we'll get you set up.
Yep. All right. Good deal, everybody.
Take care.
Have a great day.